Welcome again, Trojans Nation, to Hitman's Haven. We're bringing you another episode of Them Black Hats Trojans Nation podcast. Coming off of a 35-7 shellacking of one of our longtime rivals. As we said, we had Chris County coming up. They were struggling a little bit, and we just made sure they stayed there. What you think about that, Boone?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right.
Offensive defense played pretty good. Pretty good.
Yep.
Especially in the rain.
It was one of those days where, the amount of rain coming down where people say, only people going to be out here are your loved ones and the lovers of the game. So that's pretty much what you get in those types of crowds. But I'll tell you what, man, the Trojans still did what they had to do and brought it home. So when looking at the offensive side of the ball, obviously, this is where you kind of get to see how your team adjusts to conditions that were nowhere near what's needed to be able to go through the air the way he had been doing the 3 weeks prior. So we come out there, and what do you have to say about the offensive performance?
We rushed the ball pretty well, and, even though it was raining, DJ still threw a few passes. You know what I mean? I think he went five for like 9. One of his passes threw was a pretty slant to Cam Cherry for a touchdown. I was like, man, how in the world this kid throw that ball like that in the rain? But he did what he needed to do. But Ashton Barton, the sophomore running back, this kid is not big, but his heart definitely don't pump no Kool-Aid. You know what I'm saying? He's all heart. And once he get a crease, you can cancel Christmas. He played pretty well. Then we had another big back, number 41, that they pounded the ball with him too, man. I mean, he's still running a little too high, but once that kid really knows how to run that football, he's gonna be something to deal with as well.
Darius Davis.
Yes, sir. Darius Davis is a horse. You know what I'm saying? A young horse. So when Jay Hill comes back, man, we're gonna have 3 backs that tell you, boy, it's gonna be some problems. You know what I'm saying? But the offensive MVP is Ashton Barton. I think Ashton scored like 3 touchdowns and rushed for 100 and some yards in the rain.
Right. It was definitely a display of our running game. Obviously, Hudson showed his legs as well. Like you said, he did complete the passes that he needed to show that he is a true dual threat. But we had his legs that were dangerous. And of course, Ashton Barton, there were some runs out there. No, you would have thought just everyone else was in the rain and he was on some skis, I guess, because, he was rolling. He's like you said, he's a quick little back, but as I said last week, he can pick them up and he can put them down. He was getting it.
Yes,
and
sir.
Quite frankly, he's kind of sneaky powerful. You can run him inside as well. For the most part, you'll see Davis coming in for short yardage type stuff or the power game. But when they needed to, look, Ashton, he'll hit it up in there. And next thing you know, he's coming out the other end. And when he comes out the other end, you're in trouble because you're not going to catch him. So like you said, our offensive player of the week is that scat back we talked about last week. But like I said, he'll roll up on you with the power too. Ashton Barton, offensive player of the week.
But I also want to highlight that offensive line, man. Them boys, man, hey, it's going to be some weeks where you got to say offensive MVP was the offensive line because, man, them guys, man, I'm here to tell you, they something serious and they only going to get better.
Yeah, you have to acknowledge them. Whether you're talking about the pass game or the run game, the offensive line is going to be what determines how that's going to go. You don't want your quarterback to be, rushing through throws. He never even gets to get to the completion of the timing that's there for the routes that you're trying to hit. Let him be able to take his full drop and hit our receivers in stride. And certainly there was no issue as it relates to his protection last night. And like you said, it was a grind them out game. And they were grinding. We had our big boys were putting that thing on them, laying on them, and had them on skates sometimes. So that's what you want to see. That's what you want to see. You want to see the line continuing to come together. And we said that last week. They're work in progress, and it's good. Like I said, they get this game in the absolute downpour of rain We already know how that affects your traction. We know that how that even affects what you choose to do in your game plan.
Correct.
And we got to see them grind it out on the ground primarily. But when it came time to hit some of these lanes in this passing game, they made that happen as well. So absolutely, I'm with you, man. Let's make sure
Yes,
we
sir.
acknowledge what we used to call them, the big nasties. We need
That's
to
right.
acknowledge them because the game is not going to happen if you don't win it in the trenches.
Correct.
Your quarterback, all of those skill guys, they're going to be running for their lives if we don't have those trench players giving us what we need on that part.
Yes, sir.
So,
Yes, sir.
and we didn't really talk about it much last game, but even from a special team standpoint, when it was time for our kicker to kick, you wouldn't have known it was raining. I mean, he was doing what he needed to do. He was booting that thing.
Yes, sir.
So that's it. Hey, man, there are multiple facets of the game, and you never want to look at one of the three and just dismiss it. Make sure you understand, and Trojan Nation, we got to acknowledge them. The kicking game, and then offense and defense. There are three legs on this thing, and when they're working all together, like I said, it was a downpour out there, man.
Mm-hmm.
And we came through where we needed to come through. So let's move on to our defensive side. Look, this was the definition of a swarming defense.
Yes, sir.
I mean, they were swarming, man. You would have thought they were some killer bees out there, man. I mean, they were all over the place, swarming to the point where we saw their most dangerous weapon really was the dual threat of their quarterback. Because, again, the rain did affect the passing game no matter which team it was attempting to pass. But the fact of the matter is their quarterback, he had some get up and go about him as well.
Yeah, he did.
And we were able to, for the most part, contain him. What in terms of our defense, stood out to you?
Man, I'm here to tell you that defensive line, even though we was rotating guys in, man, they was winning the battle in the trenches. And Chris kind of ain't no small team up front, but hey man, them guys was putting it up and putting it down. And I want to acknowledge it was three players that I want to acknowledge. I want to acknowledge the whole defense, but three players stood out. And for the defensive MVPs, I'm gonna put two of them because both of them play on the D line.
Okay.
You had number 23, Aiden Thomas, and 31, Denham Williams.
Okay.
Played well on that defensive front. And then you had that linebacker, that Ace Blunt, that when it was time for him to make a play, he made a play. But for the most part, we shut down their run game, and quarterback had a few runs where he got outside and did his thing. But for the most part, we shut down their back in number 7. And a big cause of that was for number 23 and number 31. Handling things up front. And then when they needed to sack the quarterback, guys were doing that too.
Right.
So the defensive MVPs, it's going to be two of them. It's Denham Williams and Jaden Thomas, number 23 and number 31.
So Denham Williams and then Thomas for our week 4 defensive MVPs. And like you said, Blunt is still doing his thing, and that's what you want to see. You want to see the consistency and acknowledging those guys up front. Now, this is where on both sides of the ball, we get to see them do work because you already know it's going to be tough. It's going to be a grinded out game, and the trenches are going to come into play big time. Who is going to win at the line of scrimmage? And our guys did their thing. Quite frankly, although the quarterback, was the one who ended up, finally getting them to the end zone, the fact of the matter is, like I said, he would break out, he'd get down the field a little bit, but he was running for his life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's what he was doing most of the time. He just was a good enough athlete, to make some plays. But when the game goes like it does and you go 35-7, then you know who came out on, the best side of that thing.
That's right. That's right.
Again, it was great to see, man. And like you said, you acknowledge that decent defensive line and those two players in particular, man, for coming through, and they kept the pressure on all night long. I mean,
all night long.
He was never at any point able to sit steady in the pocket. And I'll tell you what really stood out for me as well is they fought all the way down the field. So it didn't matter what field position they got the ball in. I mean, they could get it in the red zone and green zone, however you want to term it, in scoring territory. But we bowled up. We were we were not out there just conceding a touchdown.
Right.
It's like,
That's
no,
right.
no, you're gonna have to battle. So that part of it, that was good to see. That was good to see as well.
Mhm.
On the back end, one of the things as it relates to the DBs, man, we saw how they operated last week when it came to making the open field. What did you see from them, this week? Because again, I saw the swarming, man. It looked like they saw, okay, I need to work on this, and you can see some of that stuff this week. What do you think?
Well, yeah. Whenever they did get a few yards outside behind the linebackers, our DBs, they were consistently making tackles whenever they got out there. That's the one key that seems like it's starting to come together.
Right.
These guys are making tackles. They stretched that in practice. I seen them stretch that in practice. I was out there one day, and that's what they're doing. Hey, it's all about getting better, and that's what they're stressing.
That's it. Look, this is not a sprint; it's a marathon. Because the idea is to be able to play that last game in the Benz. That's what you want to get to. You want to get to where you're getting better each week. You make it to the playoffs, and from a peaking standpoint, one of the things that's interesting when people will get upset. We've been winning for so long, man, in Peach County. People will get upset. You lose one or two games, they act like it's over with.
Hey.
No, that's not how this thing works. As a matter of fact, you don't even want to really peak too early. It's just we so used to winning that if we have what appears to be a little bit of a setback, then some people think the sky is falling. Nope.
Right. Get real disgruntled.
Right. No. Hey, look, man, they're still rolling because what we want to see is steady progression, and you're watching everything, and you want to peak at the right time. I mean, if you think about last year, man, look, I'm gonna call it out. If we weren't cheated in that playoff game last year,
that's right.
I think they would have been in trouble, man. They've been in trouble by Peach County. They've been in trouble by.
They would have made it to the dome.
They would have been there.
That's
Peach County would have been rolling through the playoffs if they didn't find a way to get them out of it in that game. What was it, in Savannah, Christian, whatever it was, man, I'm going to tell you, that was ridiculous. But again, we can use that as an example of kind of when you want to be hot, when you want to be ready to roll. And our players were ready to roll, man, and they got that feeling, they got that taste. And now we get to see them continue it this year.
That's right.
So here we go. The next up, a Middle Georgia foe, one of our, I mean, we can't necessarily call Northside a heated rivalry, but it is a Middle Georgia rival school.
Yes,
we always are competing for the best of Middle Georgia. And hey, look, Northside, they come into this game, I think it's 2-1. They lost to Warner Robins, but they did beat Baldwin in what looked like was a kind of knockdown, drag out fight, 13-12, and then they beat Eagles Landing last week, 38-18.
All right.
So when you look at Northside coming up, what do you see? How do they match up?
I think we match up pretty well because in the trenches is where we're gonna determine where we're gonna be in that game, and I think we are better than what they think we are. Them kids want that game. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I know we don't circle games like we used to back in the day, but them kids know that in order to really be selected as Middle Georgia's best, you got to run through those guys. And we get a week off to get some more people healthy, and then we ready.
Right.
I think them Trojans are going to perform pretty well that night.
So we got this open week, man, and we'll still come back. We're gonna have a show, even though there won't be a game to talk about. We'll have a show, and this is what maybe we'll bring some additional guests on to talk some more football. But next up, and again, as Boone just shared, it's going to be on September 20th. So it'll be 2 Fridays from now when they'll play Northside, and that game will be at home, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So they got to, they got to come to the Valley, baby. They got to come, come and see how we do in the Terror Dome, Peach County. We going to make it happen. Any final words before we shut it down for this week?
Well, like I said, it's time for us to start setting that new standard at home where people don't want to come and play us in Folk Valley. And I think these kids are poised to do that. So, hey, Black Hat football, 48 minutes of Black Hat. Time to get with it.
That's it. And look, Trojans Nation, we gave y'all the theme. So y'all better get ready, because as always, the way to stay.
That's
Let's
right,
go,
baby.
baby. Let's go.